Well, I was hoping to have a little bit more to show of why I'm diving into uh, this next iteration of the Colorado. Um, Basically, we've been having a intermittent issue where my girlfriend is driving the truck, and as she's driving down the road, it at high speeds it's fine, and when she slows down it basically stalls and or will die. I did this on the highway to her once, not appreciated. So we need to figure out what's going on. The last time that it stalled out, I hooked up a reader to it and I was noticing the fuel trims were absolutely atrocious. So I've kind of assumed, based off of what it was doing and the readings I was getting, that we're having a fueling issue in this thing. So doing some reading, basically it says that it could either be fuel injectors or fuel pump. And being that this truck has got over almost 400,000 kilometers on it, either one of those could be bad. So I pulled it into the shop and I picked up an Orion Master Tech fuel pressure gauge, this guy here, and there's a Schrader valve on these trucks right down in there. And so I hooked that gauge up to this thing, and in the service manual it says that at 10 ps set your fuel pressure down to 10 psi, but I just left it at 50. And if you see a 2 psi drop over 5 minutes, then you got to look at either the fuel pump or you got to look at the injectors. The other thing they suspect could be the fuel regulator, but on these trucks that's in the fuel tank. So again, back to the fuel pump. So basically what I did was, with the gauge hooked up and the system pressurized, the only rubber hose that is anywhere on this truck is that one right there, which feeds to that Schrader valve. So I pinched that off, and the fuel level still, the PSI still dropped at a level that it was not acceptable. Now, unfortunately, this hose is pretty stiff, so I can't guarantee that I got it pinched off all the way. So it could still indicate either a fuel pump or injectors. So I get to tear that out, that off, that off, that off, that out, because the injectors are underneath that manifold, that plastic intake manifold. And so I got to get to that to see where the injectors are doing. So I've got a big job to do here again. And I was already in here once. So I'm going to put some music on, get grinding, get this all taken off. And then once I'm down to the injectors, then we'll see if they're leaking or if it becomes a fuel pump issue. And now I know you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why don't you just replace the fuel pump? Well, because the fuel pump is $300 Canadian, plus I would have to drop the fuel tank, and in a truck like this, I don't have a lift, so it's going to go up on jack stands. So between the time to lift this truck, put on jack stands, lower the fuel pump, or lower the fuel tank, and pull the pump, I can at least know if the injectors are good. Because if I have to replace the injectors or there's a problem with the injectors, I'm still gonna have to tear this all apart anyways. So injectors is half the time compared to the fuel pump. And if there's no issues with the fuel injectors, then I know that as well. Better to know than to not. And because I can't get a definitive answer on whether it is the pump or the injectors, we're gonna start at the injectors. So I'm gonna get cracking. And when I'm ready to test the injectors, I'll show you guys that. All right, a little while later, injectors are out. So I've got them all hooked up, all plugged in. All my intent and purposes right now is just turn the key on, get the fuel pump to pressure up, and see if any of these things piddle out onto this cardboard. If they don't, then I'm basically going to leave the vehicle sit for probably about a half hour to an hour, and then come back out and see if there's any moisture on these to see if they're leaking. So I'm just going to set you up here. And that way I can record initial key on. All right, so I just primed the fuel pump, and I'm not seeing anything looking like it's leaking. So I'm going to leave this sit for the next little bit and then come back, and if it's still all dry across these, then I know my problem is down at the fuel pump, and my day's about to get even uglier. So, back in a bit. Well, I was hoping to get a little bit further today on this project, but it ain't gonna happen. You can see I got the gas cap open, and you can see I got jack stands, so I've got the truck in monster truck mode right now. This truck had basically just about half a tank of gas in it before I started this. That half a tank of gas was a bit of a problem because I do not want to be dropping a tank with half of it full. So I tried sticking something down the neck. These trucks have an anti-siphon on the bottom of them, so trying to stick something down there wasn't going to work. So I had to come up with another method. So here's what I came up with. I got this giant piece of rubber hose, and I took off the feed line to this. This line here is from the tank. So I just basically slipped that big rubber hose over the fitting from the rail, because the rail connects up over to there. So I just disconnected that, connected this hose, and then I got that giant pail of fuel there. Those 2 jerry cans are full, so I don't know what's in there. I think those are both 5 gallons, give or take, I think. 5 liters. So there's 10 liters there, plus whatever's in the pail. That pail is not looking too great. There's a whole whack of debris in the bottom of it, and that's some pretty brown gas that's been in the bottom of this tank. So I'm a little more scared to see what's gonna come out of there. Anyways, once you have this all hooked up on this 2006 Colorado with the 2.8, under the fuse box, when you look at the pictures, it will tell you that this one here is your fuel pump relay. And then all you gotta do is just jump a wire between 30 and 87, and it just feeds hot. And it just basically turns the fuel pump on, and will just keep running until you disconnect it. Jumper wires, relay switches, whatever you got to do that. So yeah, so fuel is now pulled out. My shop smells like a big old gas refinery in here. I might turn the fan on in the shop just to let the air circulate and not make it smell so bad in here. But that's the fuel out. It's got just about a quarter tank left in it, so that shouldn't make it too bad. I got a transmission jack, which will help me lower it down, and we'll get working on that probably this week. We got the parts coming. They should be here, they say Thursday. Rock Auto has a nice tendency to show up a day early for me, so that's not too bad. The other thing I did, ordered new gaskets. You can see how wet and oily that is. I can only imagine that during the operation of this truck, with the fuel pump being the way it was and the fuel trims that I saw, that this thing was just either losing or trying to just make up fuel pressure and just doing whatever. So that's it for today. Got enough fuel fumes in my brain to melt the gray matter a little bit, so we're gonna call it and come back out this week and show and look at dropping that tank. Well, I got the stupid thing out. I'll show you. There's part of it there. But yeah, here's the tank. It's out. We got lucky compared to a lot of other people. This is still in good shape. All the tabs are all in good shape. None of them are broken, so that's good. We were a little concerned about it. Inside of the tank, looks good. But check this out. So I wanted to try and get as much fuel out of this as I could, and I got most out, but then I was down to about a quarter of a tank, so I pumped the rest out. And as it was coming out, it came out like that. Camera doesn't really do it justice, but that's more brown. That almost looks like swamp water than it does look like gas in that bucket. So I don't know what was in the bottom of this tank. I have a theory, but I don't know how well that theory will stand. But let me tell you, this is a test of patience job. Sorry, I'm just looking for my light. For a few reasons. So, first reason is I would recommend, if you're doing this, pull the dry shaft. You can get it out and you can do all the work that you want. But pulling the dry shaft will make it a whole lot easier. So that's the first thing. Second thing is they use about 4 or 5 different connectors on this to connect the various things in this truck, and I'll show you them right now. So if we crawl under the truck, so this connector is the first connector. Basically looks like that. This connector doesn't use your typical slide in the end, push out the things, pull off the hose. This, you have to squeeze these gray tabs. These 2 gray tabs, they squeeze in and out. I have a pair of pliers that I used for it, but I can't find them. When I do, I'll show you that. And then on this side, which is the back, where is it? Runs up there. Oh, it's this one. So this one runs to the evap. I'm trying to find a good light position here for you guys. So this one runs to the evap. Again, this one, from what I can tell, is also a squeeze tab. So you gotta squeeze this side, and it disengages it and allows it to open up and come off the fitting. So you got one there, that's the 2 squeeze tab, which is all right. You've got the one over here, which is another double squeeze tab, which is all right. And man, I wish I could find it. I don't know what I did with it. Let me check the other side of the truck. All right, found it. So I have this guy here. This is a push pin removal tool. So it's 2 prongs and it's designed to go under the push pin, squeeze, pull up. This was just enough angle that I was able to get on the edges of those 2 push ones and able to undo them. There is a proper set of fuel line pliers that are available for this that I did not know existed until I was working on this. So I also got those on order. So that's 2 under the truck. Then when it comes to the fuel tank, you'll have this connector. Now this one does use your standard, I'll show you that here. Okay, so this connector here uses one of your standards, one of these guys. Slides in, and then it just pushes out the 2 tabs, and then it slides off. So that's the one line. Now this line comes off of here. So on the top of your fuel tank, you'll have the small line that comes off here, and you have a bigger line that comes off here. So this is the small line. Then you have the bigger line. So that's where that one connector ends up on. But you have this connector, which if you look at it, you can see it's got 2, it's really hard to see. You can see those 2 angled pieces. Those lock into, or lock onto this right here, and doesn't allow it to come off. So that one, I found, just get a couple whatevers you can find in there to push those tabs back, and then just tap it off, because it'll be all but seized on there if it's that old. Then you've got this connector. This one is the easiest of them all. This is just a simple push the 2, push it up, and it just slides to unlock. So that's the easiest. And then you got another one of these ones on this end. And this one here is the same thing. It's just pushes it and it just opens it up. So there was like a total of like 4 or 5 different connectors that required various means of tools and swearing and cursing to get off the top of the fuel pump. Now, the next challenge I had was actually physically dropping the fuel tank. So the fuel tank slides in under here. So it slides in through here. Now, generally speaking, when you put your jack stands under an axle, you're going to put it right here. So I put my jack stand there, and lo and behold, I tried to slide the fuel tank out, and jack stand. So I had to pick it up. Jack stand is now on the inside of the, or on the outside of the leaf, not the inside. So outside of the leaf, so you have the room to slide it under. And the final thing is that this plastic piece comes off. I recommend, if you can, to take it off. I actually have to take it off this time, and you can see that this one is just dangling here because, well, there's nothing left on the back side of this. So taking these out may or may not allow it to come back in. But you want to take this cover or this shield off, because right behind in here is where the fuel neck is. I got it to come down through here and down out through here and got it up through here, because you can see it sitting right there. But I have to put it back up, and I have to connect the fuel hose to this end and back to the fuel tank that'll be sitting here. So I will be taking this off to make sure that all sits well. The last thing that I recommend is, where is it? If you are doing this and you are ordering all of this stuff to do it, fuel pump, buy yourself one of these. Now, you could just use a piece of normal 1-inch rubber fuel line if you want. That's rated for fuel hose. You can buy this specifically. I tried 6 different, 4 Napa, Parts, Auto Value. I tried like 3 or 4 places. Nobody could buy it. Nobody had this. Nobody could bring it in for me. This is specific to the crew cabs. It will not work on any other trucks. So this is for the crew cab. This end isn't too bad. This one, you can see that hose has been in there for a very long time. I would like to replace this. Only place that I can get this is Rock Auto. It's $35 for a rubber hose plus shipping. So it's going to be a minimum of $60 to $70 for this. So if you're going to do the fuel pump on this and your truck has a few miles, throw this in the cart. What I'm going to do, this is on the bottom, so I'm not too concerned about this. But this is on the top. So what I'm going to do is once I get this clamped down, I'm just going to run a piece of tape around this in the fill neck so that any dirt and debris that falls into this won't ever find its way into the fuel tank, and it'll be protected, or something to protect that. I don't know what. Fuel pump itself, I don't see anything particularly or specifically wrong with it. The top is rusted to shit. As I found with most of these, the tops of these fuel tanks are completely, because every one of these little divots collects just an insane amount of dirt and debris. This one was no different. I took a picture of what the top of that looked like right there before I did all of this. I was just focused on getting this done because I knew it was going to be a big job with how much dirt and debris, so I just did it. But I did take a picture beforehand of what the top of it looked like, so I'll just throw that in so you can have a look at that. But it's pretty common, just completely caked with dirt and debris and rocks. Like the amount of big rocks, like I'm talking rocks that are like this big around, that were all wedged in and out around this fuel tank was insane. So I'm going to be cleaning up that lock ring right there. Then I'm going to be putting the new fuel pump in right there. And then once I have that all in, then I'm going to reassemble this. Reassembly is just obviously the assembly backwards. So there's not much to see. I want to try and get this done. It's Sunday afternoon, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my time, Mountain Standard. And it's Sunday. So I'm hoping to have this done, or at least have the tank in. I'm not rushing. I want to have the tank in at least. I got new gaskets for the intake manifold, throttle body. I got a new dipstick tube because that's junk. So we'll see how far I make it tonight. And I'm probably going to do another oil change on this. I was watching a video with Eric on South Main Auto, who was talking about vehicles that are running extremely rich, can dilute the oil. The oil is not very old in this, but I'd rather not take the chance. So I'm going to change the oil hopefully tonight. If not, that'll be tomorrow, and then tomorrow will be a test drive. So going to get cracking on this fuel tank. Okay, fuel tank is back in. Just going to show you quickly. These are the pliers I'm talking about for that connector. These allow you to take that fitting off. So, a couple of things about doing this. Now, what's interesting about this truck is because it's a 2006, I call them a bastard year. It's a 1-year truck because in 2007, they changed the motor in them. In 2006, they changed the fuel system in them. And 2004 to 2005 is their own years. So because this is a 2006, there's a few things that are different on it. One is it's a returnless fuel system, so it only gets fuel up to the engine. Two is it doesn't have a fuel filter on it like the older models, and it's on the fuel pump. So if you're looking to need fuel tank parts or anything like that for this truck, good luck. Anyways, I'm going to crawl into the truck and I'm going to show you a couple of things. So, first thing is this connector. This one is at the back of the tank. That one is a giant pain in the butt. I thought I was almost going to have to take this entire line off and splice a new end on here. I'm not going to touch that because I don't know how well it's on there and it's under pressure. It's not leaking, so we cross our fingers and leave that one alone. I gotcha is so many rocks on the floor. Again, gonna be difficult to show, but I'm gonna try. So you got this line here, this big one. When you are lifting this up, if it comes out of this clip, it's easy enough for it to come around to the front side of this, and then you'll have your tank almost all the way up and in, and then you'll go to connect that line. And if you just don't give a F, you can still connect it. I would recommend not, because it'll put a lot of tension on stuff up in this area. So be warned that when you're putting this tank back up, that this line stays attached to that clip and does not fall down, because if it does, you're going to have to drain, you're going to be pulling this down again and getting that all lined up. So there's that one. So that's all hooked up. The tank is all back in. And if we go back up front, where is my light? Over there. So in the manual, it says, and I had to, because I drained the tank, I had to put 20 liters. I think it was 20 liters. Still got some in there. Yeah, 20 liters. So I had to put 20 liters in there, almost gave me a quarter tank of gas. That then allowed me to cycle and run the pump a couple of times so that it could get all the air out. And then I put the injectors, cleaned all the ports up, cleaned all the injectors, made sure they weren't leaking, hooked up the fuel line again. And you can see I got my test gauge on here. So now what they say in the service manual is that once you turn the key on, you drop this down to 10 psi, and then over a 5-minute period, it should not drop more than 2 psi. And this thing's been sitting here for well over 2 minutes, and it started just a little. It started right about the 10 mark, so it's between the 10 and the 8 mark right now. So it's holding pressure awesome. So I know now that the system is not bleeding back off into the tank or wherever else it may have been doing, because the injectors weren't leaking, so I assumed it was the fuel pump. So from here, I now have to get the intake manifold back on. I've got new gaskets for that because I didn't do it last time because they looked good enough. But after this old girl was puking out that much gas and causing me that many problems, I figured, you know what? Let's change them, because these are very stiff, and you can see just by my fingers how like oily and very gassy they smell. So those are going to get changed. Got a new dipstick tube, because when you take the intake manifold off, you got to take the dipstick tube bolt out and out to make things easier. And at some point, this thing has been so bent that it's hard to tell, but right through here, it's split. So we got a new dipstick tube for this thing. That can be fixed. So I am now moving on to what I would consider the most frustrating and difficult part of doing this, is the intake manifold. It's not hard, it's just a pain in the butt, because the bolts to secure it are in really crappy places. So I'm gonna get that all put back on. I'm probably going to do an oil change. I've been to Canadian Tire now twice in 2 days. I was there yesterday for... No, I went to Greg's yesterday because I had to buy new hose clamps for the fuel fill hose. So I was out yesterday for that. I was at Canadian Tire today because I bought a new jerry can, because the only ones that I had or have are 2 little ones, and they weren't going to do diddly, so I had to go to Canadian Tire to buy that. And I wasn't going to do it until I knew that there was no leaks and this truck was good. But now we're going to do an oil change. I don't know how. We literally did an oil change in this thing like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. But because of just how poorly it's been running, I'm just going to do another one for good measure. So it'll have good clean oil in it. And then I'll get this thing started, and I'll hook up my laptop to it, and then I'll check and see what the fuel trims are like, and then take it for a drive. So I'm going to get cracking. I don't know if I'm going to do it tonight, because I think it's already 7:30. Yeah. It's 7:30 on a Tuesday, and I don't know if I'm willing to put myself through the strain and struggling of getting this intake manifold on. It could be one of those things where if I just do it and get it done, but the thing is, if I'm going to do an oil change, then what's the rush? But then I could have it in and then be able to do the oil change tomorrow and just start it. Decisions. Either way, I'm going to get this done and we'll see where we're at from there. All right, got to plug this stupid thing. Battery's almost dead. But I've got everything back together. I still got to tighten the battery terminals. They are still loose, but it will allow me to do what I need. I started this thing I applied field pressure to this thing 2 hours ago, and we're still holding pressure. We've dropped 20 PSI, but we're still holding pressure, so I'm okay with that. Before, this guy would be at 0 within 5 minutes or less. So I am confident that the fuel pump had a fault in it. I put new oil into it because I figured wouldn't hurt. I've seen, as I've said previously, people say that sometimes oversaturated or highly gas that's gotten into oil too much can cause problems, so change the oil. New gaskets on the intake manifold and the throttle body to help alleviate issues there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the truck, let it warm up, and then I'm going to throw my tool on it and see where it's at. It's going to take a few minutes for that, so I'm going to open up the door and let it warm up, and then when everything is settled in and warmed up, I will show you what I see. All right, so here's where we're at. So I'm gonna fire up the old laptop here. Let me tell you, this new fuel pump's a lot louder too. Reconnect. Cancel diagnostics. So we can watch the numbers here. So you can see this one's short term, and I got long term, and you can see the numbers over here. And you can see that I'm in closed loop, so it's only using an oxygen sensor. And you can see in these two columns how much lower these numbers are. I'm only seeing like 3.1 to 3.91, where before I was seeing like -20 plus 20 in these columns. So fuel pump was definitely having issues in this truck. So what I'm gonna do is I got a bunch of things I gotta finish up, those bunch of small things. I gotta like put the tire on, clean up all around the truck, get it all prepped and ready. And then I'm gonna take it for a drive, keep an eye on those values, they should be fine. Fuel pump was definitely having issues, so I'm glad that that is now fixed. We won't know 100% until we're out driving this thing and she's out driving this thing and tells me how it is, and hopefully it doesn't die on us. So we won't know until then, but it's looking good initially. So just gonna, like I said, finish up, clean up, take it for a drive, put some fuel in this thing. Oh, I gotta do the front dry shaft before I take it out. I don't know if you can see, but there is snow up there now. It snowed. So I gotta put the dry shaft in this thing, the front dry shaft, to get that fixed so that this thing will be operable in the snow. Otherwise it'll be a miserable drive. So I'm gonna do the dry shaft, clean up, finish up, and call this one good. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one.